Hi everyone, this is video number 5 of 7 on the online shopping tutorial series. Feeling very excited today. For the very first time, I'm actually really excited to do a recording. In the past few videos I was kind of nervous and I had those little doubts at some point, but now I can actually feel the momentum growing. So thank you for watching and please continue to support. I've got more videos coming for you with great content. I'll keep on building little by little, slowly but surely. So let's get to it. As usual, we've got a quote for this tutorial. Comparison is a thief of happiness by Theodore Roosevelt. So on our previous video, what we did, we created an MVC UI, we added an HTTP client call to pull all the operations that we had implemented on our underlying API service. So today what we're going to look at, we're going to add AutoMapper, and then we want to add a cart model to allow us to obviously add those products onto a shopping cart. And then lastly, we want to add a customer API that will be linked to the cart items. That will allow us now to go to the checkout process on our next tutorial. So let's dive to it. I always try to post a link of my GitHub because all of this work you can find it on Git. It's completely for free. I guess it's not, you pay by supporting, I guess. But you can find the link on each of my videos. There is a GitHub link that you can use if you want to obviously look at the code. Okay, so I'm just gonna run this application and then we will see where we left off, and then we will continue from there. Okay, so that's our swagger. That was the products model, and we had those few operations. That's basically our create, read, update and delete, but I'm not interested on that one for now. As I've mentioned, we have created an MVC UI that we are going to use for this thing. My MVC UI is not running, so to fix that I'm gonna go properties, multiple startup projects, and then right now MVC shopping UI, the action is none. I'm going to change that to start, and now it should work. Let's see. There we go. There's our UI, and those were the items that we last added. So now we've got this shopping cart icon here. This is a bootstrap icon. I'm going to show you just now how to add that. And then what we want to work with today is this add to cart button here. So the idea is clicking on this button should give us a counter there on top to indicate how many items we have on the cart. And then clicking on that cart should direct us onto a page where we can actually view all the items that have been added onto the shopping cart. Okay, so first things first, let's see how do we even get that shopping cart icon. Okay, so here's my MVC app, and then this is the shopping layout I'm using. On this shopping layout, I have defined an FA cart plus icon. So all of these come from Font Awesome. So if you go Font Awesome icons, you find all of these. You can use any of these in your project. I will show you now how to how to set up your project to work with this. But yeah, if I search here cart, this is the cart I'm using. It's a FA cart plus. It has a plus sign. I guess that's why they're calling it an FA cart plus, because there's other ones that don't have a plus sign. You can use any of these, like really they all work in the same way. So yeah, to have all of that inside your project, all you have to do is to right click on your solution, and then you go to add, and you say add client side library, and then on the library you will then say Font Awesome. I've already added this on my project. I'm not too sure what will happen if I try and add it again, but let's see. After that, you just click on install, and it will add all the scripts for you. If you want to see all of those scripts, you can go to the www root folder. You will find a CCS folder created for you, a JS folder, and a lib folder. So on the CCS folder, there's something called it is like a global script that you just reference on your project, and then you are done. You will look for template css styles.css, which is this one. And then also there's a nice script that you can reference as well. Let's see. So this is on shopping layout. And then yeah, that section will then give you your cart. But now what I want to do is I actually want to put some data on this card. So for now, let's see how we can do that. I'm just gonna say it view big dot card items, and then I'm gonna go to my product controller, and then I'm just gonna, for now, I'm just gonna hard code this to a 1. Let's run this and see. So you can see that now I've got one item on my card, but that's not the ideal way of doing it. So we want to get the actual count of the card items. So let's dive into it. To do that, we're gonna need a before we even get to the microservice part, let's quickly fix something here. I don't think that card counter that we just added is clearly visible enough for the user. Like, we need to change that. Add some sort of styling or background color for that counter item there. So to do that, we're gonna need a span class page, and then we're gonna say page danger, and then close that span. Like so. Okay, let's see now. Stock. Yeah, that's much better. Okay guys, let's get to it. We don't have all day. So on my solution, I'm gonna add I want a new project. This is gonna be an ASP.NET Core Web API, and then what are we gonna call this? This is a customer card microservice. Let me create ASP.NET Core 3.1. I don't want to add any authentication. I'd love to enable Docker, but we will actually talk about Docker on the upcoming videos. So for now, I can leave all of those as defaults, and I'm gonna go ahead and create. Okay, there we have it, our microservice for the customer card. Ideally, we would have a microservice for customers and then another one for customer card, but it doesn't really make sense for me to separate those, so I'm just gonna put it in under one microservice. So we want the same folder structure as we created before. So if you look at this one, we had the controllers, database, migrations that was auto generated, and we had models and service. So let's quickly add those folders. Controllers, we already have it, so what we need is database, services, models, and that's it. Now let's see. On our database, we had the data model and then we had the DB context outside. So let's do the same for this one. Database, we're gonna add another folder, call this one data models, and then add the DB context class. In this case, it will be customer card DB context. And then obviously we want to inherit from DB context. That should give us an error for now, because remember that comes from EntityFrameWorkCore, which we have not yet installed. So I'm gonna leave it as is for now, and I'm gonna go, or maybe let's quickly sort it out. So if you go onto the shopping API, these are the packages that you're going to need. You're gonna need Microsoft Entity Framework Core. We're gonna need Microsoft Entity Framework Core Design, and then we're gonna need Microsoft Entity Framework Core .SQL Server. Lastly, Microsoft Entity Framework Core .tools. So let's quickly add those nugget packages. So in here, I'm gonna go manage nugget packages, and then I'm gonna browse, and then I want Microsoft Entity Framework Core. I want version 5, and the reason for this is simple. It's because we're using ASP.NET Core 3.1, so the later versions of this package are not actually compatible with ASP.NET Core 3.1. We tried that on our previous tutorial and we got a very disturbing error that was blocking us from updating our database models. We couldn't do a lot of things just because of the conflicting package versions. Let's see if these are being installed. We've got core, we've got design. No, we don't have design, but we have SQL Server, so now we need design. For all of these, I'm taking 5.9. And then after design, I think I need tools. Okay, so let's look at the installed packages. We've got core, we've got design, we've got SQL Server, and we've got tools. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's quickly go fix that problem now. So we can just reference this using Microsoft EntityFrameWorkCore. Our problem is sorted. And then in here, we need to call a constructor. So if you look at this one, we need to pass in our DB context option, and we need to call a super method. For DB context options, this calls a parent class options. This is just basically calling a constructor of the DB context. And once we've got that, we can now go ahead and create our data models. So in here, I want to have we're gonna have a customer, and then we're gonna have a customer card. One would argue that you don't really want to keep the customer card items. Yeah, maybe I should call it customer card item. One would argue that you wouldn't want to keep the customer card item on the database, but you certainly do need to, because I mean, you would want to authenticate your customers and allow them to add onto their cards. If they somehow lose that session or log out without checking out, you want to persist that data onto a database so that next time they log in, whether they decide to check out, their items are still on the card. They don't have to re-add all of that. Okay, so now we've created our data models. Now we need to define some properties for this. Let's start with the customer. I'm just going to say customer ID. This is really a customer ID, as in like a auto-generated ID key of the model. We don't want to be keeping customer ID numbers on our database. We don't need that. and then we can get the full names. We need the email. I'm just going to say email address. And then we need the contact number. And then we also need the there's two options with their home address. You can either ask the user to provide their address upon checkout so that it can be used for delivery, or you can just store it on the database. But the home address can always be different from the delivery address. We can allow them to change that. Lastly, I'm gonna add let me just say a date time property for their date of birth. For some reason you want to know your customer's date of birth. And then I'm gonna add these 3 more columns to say I want to know the date they created their account. I want to know the date they modified it, and I want to know the date it is deleted. In case they decide to deactivate it or whatever. So we've got customer ID, full name, email address, contact number, home address, date of birth, date created, date modified, and date deleted. What else do we need for the customer? I think that's fine. And now we can look at the customer cart item. So on this one, we can say we're gonna have a cart ID, and then for a cart we also need to know the quantity, meaning how many items have been added on this cart for a particular product. And then we also want to have the product ID, and we also want to have the customer ID. I think I'm going to change this because now this will be a foreign key on the customer table. But what I want is to actually work with the email address. But no, that is also fine. Let's leave that out for now. We're gonna go ahead and say public customer, and then say customer to get us that foreign key. And there's a couple of ways one can define a foreign key on EntityFrameWorkCore using code first, and this is one of the approach. You will notice the product ID, I'm not referencing the table unlike customer. Well, the reason for that is simple. It's because the product data resides on the shopping API, which is a completely different microservice. So I don't want to reference the table and have a foreign key across, but what I want to do is to just create a column that I can use to store the product ID each time the product is being added onto a cart.